Hello, friends. My name is Michael Levine, and welcome to another edition of Without Notes. We are now in our 11th year, which is still stunning to me. Today, our guest is going to be one of LA's most renowned criminal defense attorneys, Vince Imhoff. And we are going to try in this conversation to go into the mind, the heart, and the soul of a criminal defense attorney, asking all kinds of penetrating questions like, do you have any moral dilemma representing someone you think or know to be guilty? I think this episode will be stimulating, at least I hope so, and I look forward to your comments, thoughts, suggestions, and ideas once you've had a chance to view. With that said, Vince, welcome to Without Notes.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here.
Vince, let's start in the beginning. Where were you born, friend?
I'm born in like suburban Chicago area, Elmhurst, Illinois.
Okay.
So
And raised and went to school and high school in that area?
right. I was raised in the Warrenville, Naperville area. Went to Wheaton High Schools. Went to college down by Joliet, Illinois. Law school in Chicago. The total product of Northern Illinois.
Right. And were you, generally speaking, in high school in high school, were you considered a good student, Vince?
No, I was not a good student. I was not a bad student. I just didn't care. I got straight C's. I
Straight
just
C's. Okay. You were a
except in political,
testimony
right. In
test.
history and political science, I got A's, and everything else straight C's.
Right. Well, okay. So this tribute to mediocrity then somehow becomes a famed uh, criminal defense attorney. We're going to learn more about that journey. But I want to understand also, if I had met you in high school, maybe a sophomore, junior in high school, would you have appeared to me to have come from a middle class home, a lower middle class home, or an upper middle class home?
Solidly middle class. My dad was a
Solid.
mechanic. My mom's a real estate agent. We were a union house for a while, while he was a mechanic.
Right.
Before he became a service manager.
Right.
So
Hardworking middle class folks.
right.
Got brothers or sisters?
Yes. We're Catholic, so there's at least six of us.
Okay. Well,
So
that's a religious explanation, but also an explanation of the different times in the world.
right.
There were
Yeah,
six.
I'm completely in the middle too. I'm not the older, I'm not the younger. I'm like right in the middle, if you
Got
can
it.
be that.
Got it. All right. So where do you go to college, friend?
I went to Lewis University. It's in Joliet, Illinois.
Got
It's
it.
right in the shadow of Stateville Prison. So,
Okay. Got it. Now, what inspires you, Vince? At what point in the story do you become intrigued or inspired to the practice of law? When do you catch that law bug?
I actually caught it pretty early, and I knew by eighth grade that's what I wanted to do. I think that when we did the Constitution, I think in eighth grade you have a Constitution test for the whole state of Illinois and all that kind of stuff to
You
make sure
did.
you're.
No, you did. Not today. That would be
Oh, okay. Well,
that
then
would
you did.
right. Yes.
And I
Yes.
was intrigued by it. I liked it. I understood it. Just, it hit me. I don't know why or
It
how, but
awoke
it
in
did.
you. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't watching Perry Mason or some crime show or something of that sort. It was the Constitution.
Well, it was, but at during that time, it's the late 60s, early 70s, right? I was born in
Yep.
1961, lived in the Chicago area. There's three TV stations and then there's WGN. And so the Cubs were always on WGN and always on during the day. And you obviously didn't watch soap operas when you're sixth, right? You don't even know. So when you're that age, you just watch baseball because that's what is on. And
Sure.
between right before the game would start, they'd have 10 minutes of news. So from
Okay.
like 1 to 1:10. And during that time was the upheaval in Chicago. There was a political riot for the convention in '68.
Yep,
The police and the DA raided Bobby Steele's
yep.
apartment and shot it up. And all of that played out on the news between 1 and 1:10. And then we all stood and sang the national anthem and the Cubs played baseball. So somehow
Uh,
that watching that over and over again, and because the trial played out in front of us while we
yep,
watched baseball. And so
yep.
that interested me. And then there was the Constitution, and it sort of came together. As I watched The Injustice every day for 10 minutes, and then there's baseball.
And this intrigued you, and this got you
Yes,
started.
it
So
did
you
because
then go ahead.
you know, the DA shot like 11, like 100 bullets, just some crazy number into Bobby Steele's house, right? And I think there was one gunshot the other direction.
Right.
And so the injustice was just so much when you're in third grade. You're like, what? You don't get all the other parts of it.
But Vince, it is interesting that at a young age, there was something in you that had a righteous sense of indignation. That's an interesting aspect of you. So you go to college, you finish college. Do you become a better student in college, or are you still a straight C
No,
student?
I started as a C student. Then it occurred to me I had to get into law school, and the C student wasn't going to do it.
Right.
Um,
No, no. I don't know a lot of law schools advertising for C students, actually.
so the last 3 years, I was much better at school.
Got
I
it.
got much
And did you
better.
get better? Did you get better, Vince, by disciplined hard work, or your interest was awakened, or a little of both, or how did you get better?
Uh, Mostly disciplined hard work, but the political science classes were much more interesting to me, and the uh, the desire to be a lawyer sort of awakened the
Yeah,
discipline part.
sure. Yeah. When you find the why,
Right,
the how will take care of itself. When the
right.
when when the why is big enough, the how will take care of itself. Okay, great. So you graduate. Where do you go to law school?
I went to Illinois Institute of Technology, Chicago Kent College of Law,
Okay, graduate in what year?
1989.
Okay, so now you're an attorney. You got to pass the bar. Did you pass the bar on the first
Yes,
try?
I did. Yes.
Okay, that's not always the case. I mean, there's some very fine attorneys, as you know, Vince, that pass the
Yes.
bar in the second or third try. Isn't that true?
I totally understand that, but let me go back to this. My dad was a mechanic. My mom was a real estate agent. I didn't have a second chance.
Yeah.
I had
I,
one chance to pass, and then bills were due.
well, Vince, that's also a very interesting part of the human condition. Necessity forms a creative intensity that little else, that
Right.
people don't fully recognize. You know, it's interesting, Vince. It's very interesting. People who come from a affluent home, in certain ways, they have great, great, great advantage. On the other hand, I can't help but wonder, and maybe your comment is making me think about this, they also have a certain disadvantage in that you were hungry. You had to make it. There was no backup plan. There was,
No, there wasn't. And I don't know if you know this or not, but I worked during college and law school. I worked during the day and went to college and law school at night. So there
yeah,
was no backup plan.
there's
That
no
it
backup.
was plan B.
Yeah,
Plan A was to go during the
yeah,
day.
yeah. No, but I think that the audience should hear this and listen to it and understand that grit and resolve and resilience are so vital to the great success that you've had and that others have had. And that unfortunately, in today's contemporary life, grit and resilience and resolve are very, very diminished in so many of our younger friends. Can you talk about that, Vince? What your observations about grit, resolve, and resilience are?
Oh my God, yes. So back when I was working during the day and going to college at night, all of my friends were having a much more fantastic life than I was
Yeah,
having.
I bet.
I,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, you're 19 to like 29, right? So
yeah,
that's a pretty fun period in your life.
indeed.
And I was invited to many things that could be in the way of my success, my
Yep.
long-term success.
Yes,
And
sir.
so I turned down many, many invitations and sat home on many Saturday nights and tried to make reports and do accounting homework and understand economics, which I never did, but was able to get a C plus out of it. So, you know, those things you just had to work to.
A C plus is a diminished B minus, so let's refer to it as a B minus. No, but Vince, you're, I don't know fully if you
Mhm.
recognize the power of what you're saying to people watching the show all over the world. The absolute transformative power of sacrifice, discipline, which again, unfortunately, are terms not very common in today's world. So you become an attorney, you pass the bar, and now you're an attorney. You're living in Chicago. You pass the bar. You're how old are you when you pass the bar?
28.
28
28.
years old.
Mhm.
And then what becomes of your story next? What becomes the next step in the journey?
Um, when I passed the bar, I took and I called the Cook County um, personnel office like the next day
Yep.
and said, "How do I become a public defender?"
Cook
Because
County is a
it's where
prominent,
Chicago is. It's the county that encompasses Chicago.
and
Because I
you
didn't want to be
called
a public defender in like Wheaton. I wanted to go to the center, right, where
right
the public
where
defender
the
needs to
action
happen.
is. Right.
Right. Um, Not that Wheaton's bad, but so they just sent me this application like it was I was applying for a job as grocery bag boy at you know Pavilions or Safeway, whatever it is, right? It was a very standard, and
Right.
I got an interview, and I was very fortunate to come after the federal government cleaned up the justice issues in Chicago. There was a scandal called Gray Lord in which the federal government bugged the judge's chambers, the only one in the whole country, and they caught him taking bribes. They, so the politicians sort of cleaned up the court system. I don't know if you call it cleaned, but they put some folks in jail. They hired a public defender from Washington, D.C. He taught us training. And for the first 2 or 3 years I worked there, I had a lot of resources poured into me being successful that
What
I
was
now
your start?
realize were there that other people don't have.
So that mentorship was very valuable. What was your
Yes.
starting salary in Cook County? And
It was $22,600.
and you were happy to have it. Okay.
Well, actually, as a law clerk, I made $21,000. So it was only a $1,600 raise,
Vince,
which I think is like a
how
buck an hour.
Vince, I'm asking this question in a leading way, but you'll answer it in as independently as you choose. How important was that mentorship in your development as an attorney
Oh
in
my,
those
it
first?
was incredibly important. Um, Randolph Stone ended up working with the University of Chicago and starting a law clinic over there and working with Barack Obama and Elena Kagan, the Supreme Court Justice, right? And so he was obviously of that caliber. And so when he came to Chicago and brought training, he taught us trial ad. He took us out of the courtroom 2 weeks a year just to train us in how to be better trial lawyers. He had actual actors. Um, Dennis Ferrans, was a character actor a little bit in cop shows in the
Yep.
90s. He would come and train us and tell us how to stand and where to do. So they did a lot of really good acting training for
Real
us.
life, visceral, palpable, real life mentorship training. Okay, great. So now you're on your journey, you're learning your craft. How do you pivot? from Chicago, where you were born and raised, where all your friends and family are, to make your way out to Los Angeles?
Well, I decided that I paid off my student loans. I got lucky and had them
Which
paid
were
off.
what was the total amount of your student loans?
Oh, I didn't have much because the factory I worked in during the day paid for college, so I didn't have a lot of college notes.
Got it.
Um, but I a total of 7,500. It
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
very much.
That's today a rounding error in
Right,
yeah,
right. But it still was big. I only made
yeah.
$22,000. I mean,
Yeah, got it. Got it. All right. So now what precipitates your desire to move to Los Angeles? How does that happen?
uh, I decided once I owned my law degree, I paid my student loans off. It was all
Yes.
mine.
Yep.
I just looked and thought, I've been a lawyer for about 7 years,
Right.
and I was trying major felonies day in and day out. And I just thought there had to be a better way or a better part of life. I looked around and saw other criminal defense lawyers who were in their 40s on their third marriage with their third set of babies. They had a 21-year-old, they had a 14-year-old, and they had a 1 day old baby. And I just looked, and you just could tell that's where this career was going. I mean,
Right.
I enjoyed it. It was hard work. I tried cases. I worked and drank and then worked again all through the day and night. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of energy and a lot of work. And I was running marathons at the time because I was so angry or anxious and smoking and drinking like a crazy man. It was everything, all 100 degrees at all times.
And did Chicago winters play a role in your decision to leave?
Oh my God, yes. I was sick of
I
my
have
eyes freezing and my nose freezing just going
I
outside.
have never asked a person from Chicago that question where they haven't said emphatically yes. So that's interesting. Okay. So Vince, I want to ask you about you come out to LA. I want to talk to you about the practice of law. I want to talk to you about some theoretical questions. Now, I don't know how you're going to answer these. I know a bit about you, but I don't know. First, let me ask you this theoretical question, which is you're a criminal defense attorney. Do you have any moral problems representing someone you feel to be or know to be guilty? Or is that not part of your moral makeup?
It's not part of my moral makeup. I don't have a problem. Well, let me just say this. I occasionally have a problem with that. I mean, but I do my best job. I'm still a human being and I still have morality and I still don't
Of
want people
course.
hitting people over the head and,
Right.
and stuff like that.
But
I'm not pro criminal. I'm,
how does a criminal defense attorney take the moral mind they're born with and bracket it to say it is my job to represent someone I think to be or know to be guilty, and I will do my job with as much passion and spirit, and I will not be troubled by it. How does one do that?
um, Generally because the police departments in this country overcharge, probably on purpose. I mean, I've never worked for a police department, so I don't know the philosophy of them. But I think
Talk
they
about what
overcharge.
overcharging is. So,
Well, that's where
another,
you have some facts and and there's a crime, and you think it fits this, but you can reach for a crime that has more jail time or more
yeah,
probation about it, a more serious crime.
yep.
And so you charge that crime in hopes that the evidence develops that way. But you have enough evidence for a smaller crime. And so
Is there a desire, do you believe, when police overcharge, is there a desire to do that to precipitate a settlement, a kind of plea deal?
I think that's the deal, but like I said, I've never worked for the DA's office. I don't know why they do that. I thank them for doing that because otherwise I'd have nothing to talk about.
Okay, got it. All right. So that is how you justify, in part, morally justify representing someone you think or know to be guilty, because in our judicial system, everyone, including people, everyone should be presumed to be innocent until proven guilty, which is also a concept that has fallen on hard times in contemporary America. An accusation is often perceived to be true, even though it often isn't. Not often, but it's not infrequently untrue. Accusations are thrown around all the time, particularly in the social media world that we live. So everyone's entitled to a passionate and good defense, and you do
Right.
that for your clients. Now, do is it true, Vince, that in America, police, when they detain a person or arrest a person, are permitted under American law or state laws, federal law, to lie to defendants? In
Yes,
other
they
words,
are. They are permitted to lie to defendants, and I believe Anton Scalia in Illinois versus Rodriguez or Rodriguez versus Illinois said it was good police work for police officers to lie to criminal defendants to get them to confess or give information out.
now this is not known by civilians.
Mhm.
So I want to just pause there for a minute and repeat what Vince has just taught us. In America, it is legally permissible and sometimes encouraged for police to lie to people they detain or arrest. Is that
Yes,
true?
yes, yes,
And the purpose might be to get them, the person detained, to confess. And that does not seem, all that also seems morally troubling. So,
it is to me, but I'm not the police officer. That's not my career path. So I'm not going to throw shade or judge the police officers. I understand why they do it. I understand the shortcut it provides them. Um, and I think that when juries hear it, they understand what it is and they judge it appropriately. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it hurts. It's what it
you know,
is.
there is a concept that many Americans embrace, which is that the justice system in America is guided by the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. That there are, in essence, two justice systems in America. In some ways, maybe there are two healthcare systems in America, one for people with money and one for people without. Is it true, Vince, or can you illuminate the concept of justice in America? Is there are the, have you witnessed two justice systems in America? One for people with a vast amount of money, wealth, resources, and one for people who just don't have that. Is that a true remark or not particularly or
No, there's definitely two justice systems in America, and but
talk
I don't
about
think
that?
America's unique. I mean, and
Right.
I don't think I think in all of man there's been two justice
But
systems.
Vince, that
But
may be true, friend, but America aspires to be unique.
that's true, it
Right.
does.
Right. So what's interesting about what you said, America is not unique. In all societies, there is a bias toward people with connection and asset. But America does aspire to be unique. It
Yes.
aspires. Okay. Does America do better than most societies that you're aware of in being relatively fair, not perfectly fair, but relatively fair?
Oh, I think so. I think if you look at John Hinckley and his shooting of President Reagan and the fact that he wasn't put in front of a firing squad.
Yeah, yes, yes. In other, I think in Moscow, had somebody done that to Putin, I have a feeling that the justice
Or
system,
think of this, that was Brezhnev at the time.
yeah,
Brezhnev would have drawn and quartered that person. He
yeah.
would not just shot him.
Well, our friend Mr. Putin seems also to not be too lax in his personal security. So,
Right.
Vince, talk to me, please, as we begin our descent into closing out the show. Talk to me about what the most challenging aspect of your job as a criminal defense attorney is. What is the thing that is most challenging for you and for most criminal defense attorneys?
Oh, it's it's weaving the personalities of the client. Well, first of all, most crime is caused by men 18 to 34. So those are generally the clients, right? Most of those clients that I see now are paid for by their parents. Most of my fees are
So
paid for by
most
parents.
of the defendants that you represent, 18 to 34 male, are paid for by their parents or grandparents.
Right.
Got it.
And navigating the family dynamics along with the police dynamics and the individual defendants dynamics is a challenge because you have to figure out how to get the police not necessarily on your side but at least benign, right? You because otherwise if they're angry it's going to be a lot of hard work up the hill all day long. So you want to make sure you can take some time to slow it down a little bit so you can calm them down. You need them to at least be benign. And then you have to figure out how to make sure mom and dad don't have extra guilt for whatever their child did, because that's an issue you have to work around too. And then you have to take the child or the young adult or the client, whatever, wherever you find them, and work with their moral code because their moral code is driving the whole show.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, Vince, is that a large part of your job, not all of it, but some significant part of it is that of the role of the psychologist that
Yes,
you,
because everybody has lots of guilt,
yeah.
and you just have to work with that or massage it away.
Vince, I'm going to ask you a final question, and thank you for this. You have been extraordinary. People will watch this show in all 50 of the United States and 26 foreign countries. The people in foreign countries are getting an insight into the American legal system, justice system, criminal defense attorney, the mind of a criminal defense attorney. Um, my final question to you is this. You've represented a vast number of clients, people alleged to have committed crimes, majority 18 to 34 male. What percentage of those crimes, alleged crimes, have had an interconnection with either drugs or alcohol? What percentage of
Oh my goodness.
these uh,
Oh, nearly all of them. There are very few sociopaths in this country or in the world. If it wasn't for drugs or alcohol, there would be what 95% less criminal defense lawyers. It Drugs and alcohol is the whole show.
it's drugs and alcohol.
Right.
So what this is very important because it's under discussed. Vince is saying that 95% of the people he's witnessed are creating crime or allegedly involved in crime because of some relationship with drugs or alcohol. This is a
Mhm.
very, very important point, very under discussed. Vince, you have been just a terrific and wonderful guest. How do people watching this learn more about you, or firm? Is there a website that they can
Sure.
visit? Or
Our website is imhoff.law, IMHOFF.LAW. That's where our website's at. You can call our phone number, 855-9-DEFENSE. We're here in Los Angeles, but we have offices throughout the whole country. And they can find us at,
you represent clients all over the country. Is that true?
yeah, yes, we have uh, all over the country. We have offices and people working.
Vince, very, very stimulating conversation. Thank you for your time. You were very generous. I appreciate it. And I hope you were as intrigued by some of the things we discussed today as I was and as the audience will be. Thank you again.
Thank you, Michael. You have a good day. It was a pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, children of the night, that was a very, very interesting and stimulating conversation. At least I thought so. About the mind, the heart, and soul of a criminal defense attorney. What are the issues and problems that go through the everyday life and mind of a famed criminal defense attorney here in Los Angeles, Vincent Imhoff? I hope you found the conversation as stimulating as I did. And I also hope that you will support the concept of a stimulating, open, honest, transparent, authentic, and vulnerable dialogue by liking the episode, commenting on the episode, sharing the episode, subscribing to the channel. These are all little things that every viewer can do to support not only the show, but the concept of the show. And someone wrote to me recently, this show is the non-emoji show on YouTube, and I think that's a compliment, or at least I accept it as such. The other thing is we've now opened up this show to all of the major podcast portals. So you can watch or listen to the show at your leisure, in your convenience. You can listen to it as a podcast while you're exercising or taking a walk with the dog, or you can watch it on YouTube. So we've really taken it to a wonderful variety of platforms. I'm Michael Levine, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next edition of Without Notes.